Welcome to the Commodore 64 Crypt. In this one installment, we're gonna have a look at Wizard of War. There are two different versions of this game that have been made, and let's look at the first one that was released all the way back in 1982. And wow, is it a sight. And it's also quite a sound as well, because it also doesn't sound too appealing. Honestly, that's the case with most early games that were made on the Commodore 64, but this one feels particularly bad. And yeah, also let's hear it for enemies that just spawn right in your face like that for no reason whatsoever. Yeah, this game doesn't really have too much control concerning the way that it goes. So this game was released in arcades all the way back in 1980 by Midway, and honestly I'm not sure if this is even supposed to be a port of that or if it was supposed to be influenced by that, because it doesn't remotely look or sound the same. And yeah, once again there was another enemy that spawned inside of me. And yeah, after a while the enemies just start going at really ballistic speeds like that, and they kinda become really annoying to deal with. More so considering that you have to deal with this really pleasing music loop which is going on in the background. Also, what the hell am I even shooting at right now? Are they supposed to be like ice cream sundaes on legs that really have seen better days? And yeah, that's the Wizard of War, and he's kind of a chump in this game. He doesn't even shoot at you into this one version of the game. In fact, that's a thing that was in Wizard of War and is not into this version of the game whatsoever. Enemies do not shoot at you, and there's like absolutely nothing that differentiates the enemies apart, so honestly it's kind of a poor introduction to Wizard of War. If you played this game thinking, oh hey, Wizard of War is kind of a crappy game, well, I'm sorry, but you didn't really get the full picture, because the real game is supposed to be way better than this. Even back when I was a kid, I was like, wow, this game is not very good. More so considering the other port of the Commodore 64 game that we're going to play right now, considering that we finally game over. So let's flash forward 1 year and let's see what Commodore managed to do for the other release of this game. Yeah, already this feels way more sober. Yeah, and you even get this really haunting music, which is just supposed to be like a really ominous cover of this song. I don't really remember the name, but it just goes dun, 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 dun. But yeah, these actually look like monsters that you probably will be scared of and everything. So yeah, might be the time to finally talk about the game a little bit more. Essentially, in the Wizard of War, you're just thrown into mazes like these, and you need to shoot everything. And yeah, you are a warrior, by the way. Not a warrior, but a warrior. All of the different enemies in this game have names. They're listed at the beginning of the game if you let the intro go on for long enough, along with all of the points value that they have. And yeah, here's our ice cream sundae of earlier. Now it looks exactly how it's supposed to be, which is some sort of really grotesque, disformed fly. Honestly, this one is way more appealing. So yeah, a lot of people pretty much consider this game a shoot-em-up Pac-Man, but like with bullets instead of having to munch the enemies, and to be fair, this is not really too far off from being the actual thing that it's supposed to be, but there's actually some depth into this game. For instance, whenever you let the game go on for long enough, well, I guess that the Wizard of War can just spawn in order to pay you a visit. He's quite a bastard because he teleports all over the place and he shoots projectiles at you. If he hits you, not only you lose a life, but you also need to move on to the next level without having your bonus. And you never really know whenever he'll pop up, because sometime you will just carry on with a level, and then you will fight the ice cream sundae fly creature, and then afterwards you will fight the warlock. But while the warlock will always appear, it's not guaranteed that the Wizard of War will appear. It depends on whether he wants to show up or not. And yeah, one thing that needs to be noted is that, well, you're not the only person that can take teleporters. Enemies can also take the teleporters, which is a good incentive for you to go into the teleporters in order to prevent them from teleporting all over the place, so that this way you're not going to get ambushed by a monster that will just randomly spawn right behind you, so you always gotta have a look at your back. And yeah, this game can also be played by 2 players, and yeah, you can either have a cooperative playthrough or even go outright with competitive, because as far as I remember, you can shoot other people in this game, and you even get points for that, so yeah, it's a co-op game where you can be somewhat encouraged to murder your partners. And yeah, the further you advance in the game, the faster the enemies become. At this point, I don't really think that we're going to see enemies that will be that much faster, but usually enemies will just start the levels as being way faster instead of waiting until you've pretty much destroyed every enemy in the level, which is usually how the more meaner enemies will spawn. Usually when you kill one of these blue creatures, you will get an orange one which will spawn in order to take its place, as evidenced right here. And the moment that you kill a yellow one, you see the red one, and finally when you kill a red one, you're not gonna have any more spawns. So that could be a way for you to control the number of enemies that spawn, and yeah, you gotta be careful because sometimes enemies will spawn in the worst place possible in order to ambush you. So while the humming that was going on into the background was really slow as you were starting the game, the more that you advance here, the more the monster growls or everything get really fast-paced and becomes even more unnerving, so it always keeps you on your edge. Honestly, I like the ambience that this game has. It's really dark and sinister in a way, and honestly, this is the kind of game that you could pretty much really be immersed whenever you'd play that at night or something. Back in the time, you didn't really need all that much in order to create something really immersive. And yeah, we get double score dungeons because we killed a warlock, aka the giant fly that goes all over the place at fast speed. And what do points do in this game? Absolutely nothing. They're only here in order for your bragging rights. Essentially, if you want a high score, you gotta make sure that this giant fly do not escape, because if it takes one of the 2 teleporters, then it will escape, and therefore you will not have your double score bonus for the next upcoming level. Also, one interesting aspect of this game is that while the enemy configuration for each level is pretty much decided ahead of time, the level layouts themselves are not. There's a bunch of different level layouts that the game can have, and it will pick from all of these possible designs in order to choose the level in which you will be. Yeah, right now I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing. And yeah, now we've graduated to being a warlord. Whatever that means, but we're not a warrior. With that said, there's usually a constant whenever it comes to this game. As you get into the later levels, not only the enemies will get much faster, but usually these levels will have way less walls, so therefore it's going to be more harder to get a good standpoint in order to stay on the defensive and make sure that you're not gonna get destroyed by the onslaught of enemies. But hey, at least we're pretty much almost done with this one level as well. We only have the big baddies left. So I'm not gonna let this freak escape yet another time. So, in overall, there's only like 2 levels in the entire game whose layout is decided ahead of time and will never ever change. And yeah, by the way, you only go up whenever you're ready to go up. I shouldn't have done that. In later levels, that can become a real trouble because you can get swarm at your spawning point and you're gonna have to wait for a proper time in order to make your appearance without dying to hell the moment that you appear. As you progress further and further in the game, this will become even more of a problem. But yeah, earlier I was talking about levels whose layout never ever change. Usually, most of the levels are just dungeon and the number of the level, but there are 2 levels that will always be the same no matter what. We've already seen one of them, it was level 4 and it was called the Arena, and we're gonna have yet another one of these levels pretty soon and it's called the Pit. And this one is a really ominous level indeed. But yeah, if I have a problem with this game is that, honestly, the game never really changes its game too much, but... well, what else can we expect from a game that was made back in 1980? Honestly, we just have to pretty much focus on the fact that, for the time, this was pretty solid gameplay, even though after a time it kind of becomes repetitive, but it certainly was good at doing what it was doing. Oh my goodness. Right, we're almost dead. We're gonna make it to the pit so that we can showcase the bottom of the barrel. And once again, this freak just escaped on me. Yeah, for instance, levels like this one, it becomes kind of hard to fight properly in them because you have close to no proper lines of fire, except at the top or the bottom of the levels. Usually it's always better to fight enemies horizontally because the fighting surface that you have is much wider and therefore you have much more room in order to do stuff, but here you have to deal with the cards that you're being dealt with absolutely close to no open spaces. Okay, and now I caught you. Get ready, go, la. Sorry, I always did this back when I was a kid. I guess old habits die pretty hard. Also, the way that this level is shaped, it almost looks like a really pathetic man that just decided to give up. It's just like, whatever. Yeah, sometimes the level layouts can end up being pretty unintentionally creative. In later levels like this one, usually a good strategy is just to wait at a funnel point where you know the enemies will have to go there really slowly without being able to surprise you, and you just wait there in order to do the kill. And the same applies here. Yep, every single time you start one of the pre-made levels of the game, aka the arena and the pit, you get an extra life. And in this one instance, you'll need it because this level is a bastard and a half. I've managed to beat it once, but yeah, it's kind of hard because now you have absolutely no funnel or whatever. It's all up to your ability to move swiftly in order to be able to prevail. And unfortunately, I failed. So yeah, that's the Wizard of War. A pretty ominous shooting game. It was really neat in the time. Unfortunately, it's not like the arcade version, which had voice clips and everything, but in overall, it's a pretty good port, and usually this is one of the better known one of the bunch. So that's it for the Commodore 64 Crypt. See you next time.